A flood doesn't discriminate. It hits everybody. Wow, that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This isn't some distant problem for someone else. It's a force that can literally reshape your entire world in an instant.
All right, so let's get into it. Look, we've always had bad weather, right? Storms are nothing new. But what we're seeing these days, it's just different. It feels different. In just the last couple of decades, as the climate has changed faster and faster, our weather has, well, it's kind of mutated. It's become way more dangerous, way more unpredictable. And that's what we're going to unpack today. How climate change is taking something as simple as rain and turning it into an absolute disaster.
So to really get a handle on this new normal, let's go somewhere specific. We're going to start in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, back in August of 2016. And we're going to see it all through the eyes of a guy who lived there his whole life, Rob Godet.
So for Rob, this whole thing started out like any other summer storm. Day one, totally routine, nothing to worry about. But then, boom. Day two, he's seeing helicopter rescues on the news. The National Guard is getting called in. By the next day, he's making this absolutely harrowing drive through roads that aren't even roads anymore. They're just lakes. And get this, in just 5 days, a storm that basically nobody saw coming had flooded 150,000 homes. Just unbelievable.
Okay, so how does that even happen? What's the science here? How does a totally normal storm just mutate into something so incredibly destructive? Well, it all starts with heat.
And what's really fascinating, is where all that extra heat from global warming actually ends up. I mean, look at this chart. A whopping 93% of it is soaked up by our oceans. Just think about that. The oceans are like this giant heat sponge for the planet. But the problem is, that sponge is getting pretty full. So really, when we talk about global warming, what we should be talking about is ocean warming, because that, right there, is the engine that's driving these superfloods.
And all that warming kicks off this crazy chain reaction. It's pretty straightforward, actually. Step 1, greenhouse gases trap heat in the atmosphere. Step 2, that heat warms up the oceans. And because of that, in just the last 20 years, the speed at which ice is melting has tripled. Tripled. So all that new meltwater gets added to the ocean, and, well, the sea levels just keep on rising.
But it's not just the melting ice. There's another huge piece to this puzzle, and it's called thermal expansion. It's actually a really simple idea. When you heat up water, it physically expands. It takes up more room. So the sea level isn't just rising because of all that extra meltwater. The ocean itself is literally getting bigger. It's taking up more space.
Okay, so let's tie this all back to what happened in Louisiana. It's simple, really. Warmer oceans mean warmer air above them. And warmer air can hold a ton more moisture, like a supersaturated sponge. So when a storm forms, it's just juiced up. It's ready to dump way more rain. And that's exactly what happened. The storm back in 2016, it dropped 20% more rain than a storm like that would have just 30 years ago. 20%! That's a massive difference.
And this isn't just a problem for places like Baton Rouge, far from the coast. The coastlines themselves are in serious trouble. So let's look at two completely different American coasts. One is this slow-motion tragedy, and the other, well, it's basically a ticking time bomb.
So on one side, you got this place called Isle de Jean-Charles in Louisiana. It's a gut-wrenching story. Its people are becoming America's very first climate refugees because the land is literally disappearing from under them. And then you have the total opposite, Miami, a glittering metropolis built on a sandbar where they have something called sunny day floods. Yeah, you heard that right. The streets flood on perfectly sunny days just from the high tide. And the craziest part, they just keep building more high-rises.
Just to give you a sense of how bad things are on Isle de Jean-Charles, look at this number, 98%. Since 1955, 98% of the island's land has just gone, vanished, into the Gulf of Mexico. It went from being a place that was over 22,000 acres to now, it's barely 300. That's just staggering. But here's the thing. When you're facing something this huge, this overwhelming, people don't just sit back and take it. They're not just victims. When the official systems get completely overloaded, regular people, they step up, big time.
Take the Louisiana flood. The 911 system was completely swamped. It just couldn't handle the calls. So an absolutely incredible thing started to happen. Just regular folks with boats. They started rescuing their stranded neighbors. They formed this group, and people started calling them the Cajun Navy. They even used social media to create their own dispatch system, and they're estimated to have rescued something like 30,000 people. I mean, how amazing is that? It's just a perfect example of community resilience. Now, over in Miami, the response looks a little different, but it's no less important. We've got this artist and activist, Xavier Cortada, and he has this mission statement. I try to make the invisible visible. He's basically trying to fight a threat that a lot of people in his own city either can't see or maybe just don't want to. So what does he do? His art project is brilliant because it makes this invisible threat totally tangible. He gets residents to plant these little mangrove seedlings in their front yards, and with each one, they plant a flag that shows their home's exact elevation above sea level. It's a powerful way to start a conversation, right? It makes you visualize a future where the coastline isn't way over at the beach, it's right there, under your own feet.
Okay, so this all brings us to our final, and honestly, pretty sobering section. We have to look at the global reality of what's already locked in, what's already baked into our climate system.
And here's the bottom line. Our old way of thinking about weather, it's completely obsolete. That whole idea of a 100-year storm, a catastrophe that only happens once in a lifetime, that's over. It's gone. We're now seeing these massive events pop up multiple times in a single decade. This is the new normal.
And if you think that's bad, the long-term outlook is, well, it's staggering. Scientists have looked at the amount of CO2 that's already in the atmosphere, and they've concluded that even in the best-case scenario, we're going to have to move every single coastal city on the entire planet.
And that just leaves us with this final, absolutely monumental question. I mean, look, it's one thing to try and relocate a small community like Isle de Jean Charles, but how do you move a metropolis? How do you move New York, or Tokyo, or Miami? How in the world do you relocate millions upon millions of people? That is the profound, almost unimaginable challenge that this mutant weather has already placed right at our feet.